over to turn this black, right? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2017 Housing Committee Operating Budget Public Hearing. And I'm joined this afternoon with President Pro Tem Tyson, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, Shannon Hardin, and Michael Stenziano. The purpose of this hearing is to review the Housing Committee 2017 operating budget, and the Housing Committee actually falls under the Development Department. And I will now hand this hearing over to Director Steve Shoney. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
It's good to be back. Today we are going through the housing portion of the Department of Development's budget. I don't have my slides on the screen. I don't know if you guys can see my slides or not. There we go. As I've had the opportunity to review with each of you previously, the Department of Development's budget is about $34 million. We have essentially a continuation budget this year. We will be dealing today with you, if you will, with the left side of the pie chart. We'll be dealing today with our code enforcement, land redevelopment, and housing divisions that make up more than half of the budget for the Department of Development. I'd like to start with code enforcement. Total support for code enforcement and environmental nuisance activities in 2017 is $8.8 million, with $7.8 million provided by in the general fund and slightly over $1.1 million in CDBG funding. Addressing weeds associated with foreclosed and abandoned properties is a high priority. Within the code enforcement budget, we will be spending approximately $1 million procuring weed cutting services. Additionally, a property maintenance specialist position was funded in the environmental nuisance program to assist with complex zoning cases. I've had the opportunity to discuss this new position with council previously. This will essentially be looking at how do we make sure that we're fully following up on industrial properties, on landfills, on recycling operations to make sure that they're staying in compliance. We've been piloting that program so far this year. It's been going very well. We have a small expansion within this budget to help make that position solely focused on these kind of code compliance properties. We have a number of accomplishments that I'd like to discuss for 2016. We just last week passed with council support a change to our code that allows us to deal more expeditiously with repeat offenders. We held 5 neighborhood safety academies. The weed abatement program has mowed and cleaned solid waste from 432 properties within the community development block grant eligible areas. 123 work orders were issued to remove graffiti from vacant properties around the city. Code enforcement officers, excluding our PACE program, which I'll talk about separately in a minute, have accomplished the following through November. We issued 16,393 violation notices, and we filed 433 civil cases with the city prosecutor. I should stop here and pass along my thanks and recognition for the city attorney's office. They work hand in hand with us. They are our partners every day in this effort. Councilmember Page was an integral part of that, and having her serve as our committee chair with that experience has been invaluable. But I would be sorely remiss if I did not recognize the city attorney and his staff for their help in this. With our environmental section, city contractors have mowed and cleaned 2,043 vacant parcels. Our environmental blight abatement team has maintained 95 parcels for the city land bank. We last year, or so far this year, have received over 31,000 complaints through the 311 call center and the My Columbus app. And I'm proud to say that we are following up on every single one of those requests. And our pictures there are a very nice picture of our code enforcement team from the east side with the mayor at one of our Pride events. And then I think that's Rob McNeil out doing an inspection. And if it's Rob, it's somewhere on the south side. So some of our key team members. want to drill down a little bit more to our proactive code enforcement team. Proactive code enforcement is something that we started about 3 years ago. It is something that we initiated soon after I came on board, and I'm really proud of it. We're doing great work. We are no longer just waiting for the citizens to call us, which was the past practice. We're getting out. We're working with neighborhood groups to figure out where we need to be targeting with one side of the team, and with another side of the team, we are proactively evaluating performance of landlords, and those landlords that have a history of not maintaining their properties, we go out and audit their properties and we get after them, and we're making real change. So let me talk a little bit about what we're doing. Our PACE team works proactively in strategic neighborhoods and with large-scale property owners. Our PACE team inspected a total of 5,148 properties and issued over 2,200 notices in 3 strategic areas. Our landlord team inspected over nearly 1,900 units and issued over 500 notices among 15 different property owners. The breakdown for the strategic areas, or the areas we covered, were Driving Park, Barnett and James, and Highland West. I'd like to move on to housing, unless there are any questions on code enforcement specifically. I'll move through them and then we'll take questions at the end, unless somebody has questions now. It's up to you, Chair.
Councilmember Cinziano does have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
I defer to how the chair wants to run the committee. I know in the budget there's funding for a property maintenance specialist. Just interested in what the primary responsibilities will be, how that will enhance the code team in terms of their staff and responsibilities, and some of what council recently passed as well.
So what we have in the budget is we have been piloting having one of our staff focused on zoning violations is what the team calls it. It's really looking at those industrial properties that I talked about earlier, your recycling yards, your landfills, and just general industrial properties. We have had a problem with those kinds of facilities, whether it be having excessively tall piles of refuse, catching fire. And what we found was that those are very, very complex cases that need to be managed by an individual who understands those, the specifics of those cases. We have someone who's doing that and running the weed abatement program right now. What we plan to do with that funding is have someone have another position, probably a 480, a temporary position that's focused on the weed abatement program. That'll give Kyle Kirker, who's the person who's doing it, full-time ability to focus just on that activity. We think that's really important. Okay.
Thank you. President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Chairwoman Page. Director, I don't know if you're aware of this yet, but in the 2017 budget, there is going to be an expansion in an environmental court. And that expansion is a program where it started by Judge Hawkins. And this program is a program that instead of offenders that have cases like, traffic and, low-level offenses, and also people that may have been putting graffiti on a building, et cetera, that he now this year has a new environmental program that individuals are now going out and working with our area commissions and cleaning up, cleaning up trash, working with them to revitalize their neighborhoods. They are insuring their individuals that are doing this work, and they are willing to clean vacant and abandoned property. And so this will be new in the budget. Very successful program so far. They have a management team that's out with the individuals, and it may be a way to partner with them. I know that you have a pretty heavy load in trying to clean up these vacant and abandoned properties and mowing, et cetera. And this group of people is doing that work through Judge Hawkins. So just wanted to share that because there may be, I think it's a great program. It keeps people from being put into the system, and it allows them to also gain skills. 2 of the people have now received full-time jobs from people that saw their work. So that may be an opportunity for your department to be able to talk with the environmental court and see if there'll be some sort of partnership.
Thank you for sharing that. And while I haven't had a chance to talk with the judge about that specific program, I know our team has been talking to him about it. I will say that I would also like to take the opportunity to say this. Judge Hawkins has been a very fair, we believe a very fair arbiter in the environmental court, and his team, including his bailiff, Josh Harmon, have done a great job in terms of following up and making sure with us that when an order is issued, we get compliance. Because as we always say, our goal is not to put somebody in jail, our goal is not to collect a fine, our goal is to achieve compliance. I think this is another example of how the judge is focused on compliance more than anything else, because that's what our neighborhoods deserve.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. We can proceed with the housing portion of your presentation.
Okay, housing. The 2017 budget request for housing is $9 million, which is a 4% increase over the 2016 budget. Support for the Community Shelter Board and the Rebuilding Lives program will be approximately $6.3 million in 2017. The majority of these funding for these programs will come through the general fund, along with $325,000 of home and $81,000 of community development block grant. The entire CSB budget we covered at some level of detail in the Health and Human Services hearing, so I won't go into a ton of detail today, but can try and answer some questions if there are any questions. Changes in our budget include the addition of one rehabilitation coordinator to help us with our rehabilitation programs, and the transfer of one position to the Department of Neighborhoods. Within the CDBG budget, you will see a significant reduction. We do not believe that this reduction this year will have a material impact on our programming. We have existing balances within the vacant property prevention and the home modification program that we believe we can spend down those balances and not have a dramatic impact on the services that we provide to our residents and citizens. Some highlights from the last year for our housing division. The emergency repair program, in the emergency repair program, 512 households received emergency repair services, totaling a total of $530,000. Our chores program, which serves seniors, helped repair 157 units. The Lead Safe Columbus program did lead abatement with in 90 units around the city. This is one of our most important programs, and I have to say the team in this program consistently receives the highest ratings possible from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for how we run our program. I should also recognize with this program our partnership with the Department of Health. This is an interagency partnership. Dr. Long and her team work side by side with my team, so it's a great partnership. The deaf modification program has helped with making 63 households more accessible to those with hearing impairment. Our home modification program completed 5 modifications this past year. The house on the slide is a before and after on a project that was completed using 2 of our programs, the Vacant Property Prevention Program and the Home Safe and Sound Program. So it gives you a little example of the kind of work that we do. And then I'll take questions on housing, or I can move on to land redevelopment. Move on. Within the land redevelopment program, the proposed budget for the land redevelopment division is a new division this year, so that's why when you look at it, you see zeros in the budget. We did have the program last year. It did exist, but we didn't break them out of the administration operation. As I've said before, this is really a effort to achieve more transparency on the part of the department. It has grown to be a substantial operation, as you can see, with a total budget of with a total general revenue fund and CDBG budget of over $770,000. We felt it deserved its own line item within the budget. We have been busy in the land bank. Properties within our land bank are sold through an application process in an effort to get properties occupied. This year we sold 247 properties, which is a 16% increase over 2015. And I believe 2015 was a record year in and of itself. Sale of these properties generated $1.1 million in revenue for the land bank. Demolition of property is vital to removing blight from our neighborhoods. This year, we have demolished 273 structures. Also, this past summer, the city, in partnership with the Franklin County Land Bank, otherwise known as the Central Ohio Community Improvement Corporation, or COSIC, was awarded $12 million in demolition funds through a neighborhood improvement program grant. The city and COSIC will invest over $12 million over the next 3 years to continue the momentum to demolish vacant and abandoned properties in Columbus. Vacant properties continue to come into the land bank. This past year, we acquired 337 properties. The majority, about 262, came in through forfeiture processes. And that is all of my slides. Happy to take any questions from the members of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I know that there were conversations to co-locate the land redevelopment as well as COSIC into one location. Has that happened? And if so, can you just talk about the improvements and efficiency that you'll see in 2017?
I really hope that is done in the first quarter of next year. COSIC purchased the old Parsons Avenue Library. They are just about done with the remodeling, and we will be hopefully moving in there sometime in the first quarter. So it really is an effort to fully leverage what we have in the two land banks. I can go into a lot of technical detail as to why we have two land banks and the funding mechanisms. We've looked into whether it makes sense to combine them, and it doesn't. We get more leverage by having a city land bank and a county land bank. We partner on, I would say, rough numbers, probably half of the properties that are coming into and out of the land banks now have been touched by both. And so having us co-located from an operational standpoint makes sense. More importantly, from a customer service standpoint, it's the right thing to do. If we have individuals and investors that are interested in investing in these properties, having them have a one-stop shop to come in, work with our team, work with John Rosenberger's team, to find the best properties and the best way to repurpose those properties just makes a ton of sense. So we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be good for both groups. And I should also recognize, since they're on Parsons, we actually have gotten Children's Hospital to help us out with the relocation. We had a parking problem with where to park our city vehicles. And Children's Hospital actually stepped up and said that we could have a few parking spots in one of their nearby garages for overnight parking for our city vehicles. So it's an all-around partnership.
Great. Thank you so much, Director. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilmember Elizabeth Brown.
How do you set the price for houses to be sold on the land bank? I've had constituents reach out and say, this house has been sitting here, you should lower the price, make it more affordable, you should donate it, et cetera.
So the city, I believe it's the city charter requires us to sell properties for fair market value. So we cannot give properties away. There is some science and there is some art to determining what that is. What I would say is the cheapest part of dealing with a land bank property is buying it from us. Part of the reason we go through an application process is to make sure that the purchaser has the ability to indeed follow through on the purchase they're making. These houses are the proverbial money pits. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a plan and you don't have qualified contractors on board to do this. So that's why we do have a process that can feel cumbersome, and someone's coming in and saying, listen, I want to take this awful property and turn it into something great. We've had instances where people with the best of intentions have failed, and we're trying to put a little bit of process in place to minimize that and make sure that we're selling to qualified buyers.
Thank you. President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Chairwoman Page. Director, I know we've had these conversations in the past, but certainly we know that we certainly do not have enough affordable housing in our community. And because of that, we have, more people that are in the homeless shelters and et cetera. So a question that I have is that I know that we have some programs through your department that will provide resources to property owners that have 11 units or less to be, if they were to rent to individuals who are making very low income. And just wanting to know, can that program be expanded? I know we run out of those dollars, and every year we get the same amount of money, and in January, probably by the end of January, the dollars are almost gone. So can you tell me if there is how can we improve that program?
So I will give an answer similar to the answer I gave yesterday when Councilmember Brown asked what my wish list was as it related to our economic development budget. I will say that the administration's budget is the budget that we support. I do think that's an area where we can always do more, and there's always the opportunity to do more. We're looking into how do we improve that, and are there better places, is that the right place to put additional money if we were to get additional money? But it is certainly an area where being able to help property owners that have a history of renting quality properties to people with challenged rental histories of some sort is something we really need to do. It's well known it's well known and well documented the challenges that folks face in getting and keeping housing if they have anything at all in their rental history. And nonetheless, those are people who are valued members of our community, and we need to find ways to support getting them housing.
Again, I would agree with you. I think we have to support the property owners that are willing to take people that may have some challenged backgrounds. And I know that Commissioner Brown just had a meeting, I think last week, where she brought together property owners and shared with them the importance of really reaching out and hiring individuals that have different types of backgrounds. And so I just appreciate that. And a number of them were there and I had that willingness. I just think that we also have to have more property for them to be able to have, to be able to make this work.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say as it relates to housing prices is we have a very strong residential market in our neighborhoods that are close to downtown. And what we're starting to see is, price pressures and demand pressures as the demographics of our community change, that neighborhoods that haven't been favored for 50 years are suddenly coming back into favor. And, there are multiple solutions to that. Some of that is just building more housing at whatever the price point and adding to the supply of housing. Some of it is also making sure that we have quality housing at all levels. So that's part of what we try and do holistically as a department.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, Director. There are no other questions or comments. We do have one speaker this evening. I'd like to ask Mr. Hassan Omar to come down to the podium. Welcome to Council Chambers, Mr. Omar. You have 3 minutes. If you could again state your name and any organizations that you are representing. Thank you.
My name is Hassan Omar, and I'm representative for Somali Community Association of Ohio. Honorable Chair, Women Chaise Beach, and the other City Council members, thank you for giving me this opportunity today to speak with you. Somali Community Association was the first Somali grassroots organization founded by the Somali community back in 1996. With over 55,000 Somalis living in Central Ohio region, first and the second generation of Somalis, American, have become a part of the fabric of our community here in Ohio. Columbus is the second largest Somali community in the United States after Minnesota, and we see the numbers continue to grow every year. The vast majority of Somali community in Central Ohio live the northwest and the west of Columbus, also the east side, low-income neighborhood and apartments complex. However, the housing situation has reached a critical level among the Somali families, with the families are much larger than the average of American family. Many low-income Somali families who live participate even the Section 8 today, they cannot get an apartments that they need because many apartment complexes have rejected to accept the Section 8 vouchers. Furthermore, the issue of overcrowding and the code violation has become an epidemic. As a result, there has been a high volume of eviction, misunderstanding due to the cultural and language barriers, lack of maintenance, and abuse. That many immigrants and refugees upon the coming to the United States will consistently assist members of our community in searching for housing and filling out the necessary paperwork that they need with the language barriers and lack of understanding. There has been a consistent complaint about the fair housing practices, mistreatment among the Somali and the other immigrants in Central Ohio. In addition to that, the allegation of abuse and corruption, the landlords that are either unable or unwilling to solve their tenants issue. The Somali community has worked with the legal aid and even the city of Columbus, the code enforcement department, and other advocacy groups to ensure the rights of tenants. However, because of the lack of resources, the Somali community faces difficulties in dealing with the overwhelming number of housing issues because of lack of resources again, and we're also unable to provide the critical service that we previously provided, including case management services, translation and interpretations, advocacy, and the other vital service that the community once used to enjoy. As a value member of of Central Ohioans, we believe that the stronger we will be able to engage in dialogue to find a solution for families that needs desperately. We hope you will help us take necessary steps to resolve this problem. Last year alone, we helped 450 families that either has a eviction or looking for housing or homelessness. And all those things we did were based on the volunteers. We did not have any contract, either the city or county or state. We've been doing our own. So we request the city council to make a consideration because we are really dealing with a huge needs on a daily basis. Every day we see a family that's crying, either get an eviction, like right now, there are 42 families, 24 of them, their rent we took to the escrow court last month with the legal aid because the apartments management did not want to treat the people in a right way. And even though the city code enforcement identified those apartments are no longer, unlivable conditions, they did not fix it. So that's why we work with the legal aid. And right now we're working with the Franklin County Court as well, the legal aid, to ensure those families will get a proper, treatment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Omar, for coming down. And I would definitely like to talk with you after our hearing has concluded in order to set up a meeting soon so we can discuss this further. And Director Schoen, do you have any additional comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to say that my team has tried very hard to work with the Somali community and has found the community groups to be really important partners. We had a situation last year with Capitol Park Apartment Complex that we worked very diligently to deal with what were just really came down to some cultural misunderstandings and cultural issues. And also some really important fire code issues. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to get through that. And in that case, we had a property owner that I think wanted to do the right thing. And so even in that case, it took a lot of work. And when you've got a property owner that's a challenge, it's even harder. So I appreciate the advocacy today and look forward to helping in any way that we can.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Mr. Omar. Well, this concludes our public hearing on the Housing Committee. Again, I'd like to thank my colleagues, President Pro Tem Tyson, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, Shannon Hardin, and Michael Stenziano for joining us this afternoon, as well as you, Director Shoney, and two of your team and staff, Rita Paris and Hannah Reed back in the back, thank you all for the work that you're doing. Truly appreciate it. And I thank my team, our legislative aid office, Andrew Dyer, and CTV for all of your work this afternoon. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.